I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Is your train of thought heading toward religion? Your morning commute may have something to do with that.
History was made this week, and tonight Bishop DiMarzio goes into the deep to talk about it.
Everybody has a right to at least decent health care.
And a local group experiences something powerful in the preparation for Easter.
It touched me in such a way that I felt the Spirit move me.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Ads on the subway. You see them all the time, promoting everything from the latest electronic gadget to an array of adult beverages.
But some recent subway ads are causing some controversy. These are posters that deal with topics like abortion and religion. I wanted to find out more about these ads, the meaning behind them, and what people are saying about them. The season premiere of Nurse Jackie was this week on Showtime, and while that might not usually make headlines on this show, New York City commuters have probably noticed these ads. Edie Falco as Nurse Jackie, complete with a halo of hypodermic needles and pills, appears to be offering a blessing. Look familiar?
You know, it's basically done for shock value.
Father James Martin is a Jesuit priest, author, and editor for America Magazine. He told me he does not find the Nurse Jackie ad to be particularly offensive. He says it's just in-your-face advertising.
Advertisers realize that anytime they can use something that's religious and be a little naughty, it's going to get some attention.
But the Nurse Jackie as Jesus ad isn't the only one ruffling some commuters' feathers in the New York City subway right now. There are also these. The ads say abortion changes you. That also happens to be the name of the organization that placed the ads in the subway.
Statistically, there are more abortions that occur in New York than some other states. So we know that there may be a higher percentage of men and women who are having difficulty afterwards. And we wanted to be able to reach out, and it seemed that the subway was an ideal place.
But the ads aren't sitting well with pro-choice groups. Samantha Levine of NARAL Pro-Choice New York was recently quoted by Metro New York as saying the organization behind these ads has an agenda. They aren't seeking to help women, they're seeking to get abortion banned. Michaeline Friedenberg, who started Abortion Changes You, says nothing could be further from the truth. And her group is not affiliated with any political party or religious group and is not advocating to bring an end to abortions.
The Abortion Changes You outreach is something that grew from my own personal experience. I had an abortion when I was 18 and was unprepared for the emotions that I felt afterwards. And since then, I have heard hundreds, if not thousands, of stories from men, women, and family members who have a range of emotions after their abortion, but feel very isolated and alone. And we wanted to communicate to them that they're not alone, and that there's healing resources available.
As for his part, Father James Martin finds the ads effective.
I think anything that can get people to respect life more and to think more carefully about this decision about having an abortion, I think is good.
Other recent ads have also stirred up controversy, like these ads placed by the atheist group, the Coalition of Reason.
I don't think it's going to convert anybody who's already religious. I mean, I think, people are already atheist and agnostic without having to be prompted by the New York City, subway.
I took to the streets to find out what people think of ads dealing with religion and morality.
I think they're fine. First Amendment, why not? Sure, stimulates the conversation.
It's not really an issue dealt with in the UK as much as it would be over here. It's just we live a more secular lifestyle in the UK than you would over here.
I suppose if you're sitting on a train a bit bored, it'd be quite handy.
And even though ads dealing with religion and morality tend to generate a lot of controversy, Father Martin says he finds sentiments elsewhere to be more bothersome.
I think actually more damaging are the sort of subtle anti-Catholic jibes that you read in the newspapers and in reporting that go unmentioned. Someone is mentioned as a devout Catholic, and that's supposed to telegraph that they're, rigid and narrow-minded, something like that. So these things on TV and in the magazines, I actually am less offended by than sort of subtle anti-Catholicism in more serious venues, like in newspapers and say on news programs and things like that. Those are the things that bother me more.
And I've written more about this story over on our website. Just go to currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave.
Well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead. We'll have the day's headlines, including the latest on the clergy sex abuse scandal in Europe.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up a bit later, forget about dyeing eggs or buying any chocolate. We'll visit a church finding yet another way to get ready for Easter. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. As the Vatican continues to deal with a growing sex scandal in Europe, leaders of one prominent religious order acknowledged today that its founder sexually abused seminarians and had apologized and asked for forgiveness. In a statement, the Legionnaires of Christ said the late Father Marcial had engaged in acts that were reprehensible and contrary to his Christian, religious, and priestly duties. Last year, it was revealed that Father Marcial had also fathered a daughter and had a long-standing relationship with the child's mother. The order is now under investigation by the Vatican. Father Marcial died in 2008. Closer to home, the former basketball coach of Christ the King High School in Queens was indicted yesterday by a Massachusetts grand jury on 2 counts of child rape. Bob Oliva also faces 1 count of disseminating pornography to a minor. The award-winning coach resigned last year when allegations of sex abuse first emerged. His lawyer insists Oliva is not guilty, but if convicted, he could face life in prison.
Well, a new survey indicates broad support among different religions for immigration reform. According to the Public Religion Research Institute, 92% of Catholics, 90% of white evangelicals, and 87% of white mainline Protestants favor an earned pathway to citizenship for illegal immigrants. Well, another pathway was on people's minds last weekend as dozens of Catholics took part in a first-of-its-kind pilgrimage from one end of Manhattan to the other. On the first day of spring, they put a spring in their step and laced up their sneakers to undertake a unique spiritual journey. 146 people turned out for the first annual Pilgrimage of New York, organized by the Cathedral of St. Patrick Young Adults Group.
We wanted to keep it as simple as possible. We wanted people to focus on the walk.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women.
And what a walk it was, 13.5 miles from the top of Manhattan to the very bottom, and a visit to some historic sites, starting with the Mother Cabrini Shrine on 191st Street.
What we whittled it down to were the 2 shrine sites that actually are in Manhattan, Cabrini and Seton, and the 3 most historic churches that currently exist, which would be St. Peter's, Old St. Patrick's, and St. Patrick's Cathedral.
In between those stops, a lot of walking and a lot of time to reflect.
Daily bread, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. We're in a jungle. We're in New York City. And as we walk in the streets, you got 100-something people praying, you know? You got people praying the rosary as they walk in the streets, and people are looking at you. People are looking at the priests, the brothers that we have here. I'm like, wow, I mean, this is unreal.
Some are doing this as a type of Lenten penance. Some are doing it as a prayerful experience. I'm doing it as a combination of a prayerful experience and a healthy experience.
And whether it's a time to pray, learn more about Catholic history, get some exercise, or do all 3 of those things, these pilgrims are happy to reach the shrine of Elizabeth Ann Seton at the southern tip of Manhattan, the final stop for the day.
Tired, painful, my shoes a little tight, but you just gotta keep trekking along because you know that the end is gonna be great.
A little faith and maybe even a little fitness there in the last days of Lent, and the pilgrimage took almost 8 hours. And finally, for the first time, Ireland's pubs will be open on Good Friday. Limerick is hosting a rugby match that day, and a judge has ruled that pubs can stay open to welcome thousands of expected visitors. The priest who oversees the Limerick Diocese, however, has asked the faithful to stick to church and not the pubs on the holy day. And a group of Franciscan friars living near that stadium say that they may pray and set up Stations of the Cross outside to greet rugby fans as they arrive.
Gotta love that rugby. We'll be right back with more currents. Just ahead, what's the real deal with healthcare reform? Bishop DiMarzio gives us the 411.
No matter what proportional good might come of looking the other way, we just can't do that.
Welcome back. Well, late this week, people on both sides of the abortion debate had harsh words for the executive order on health care signed by President Obama, an order which Obama says will keep federal funds from being used for abortions. The National Abortion Federation said it was very disappointed in the move, while the National Right to Life Committee called it a transparent political fig leaf.
Clearly, healthcare reform is continuing to spark debate around the country and also right here in Brooklyn. We had a discussion about it just yesterday with Bishop DiMarzio for this week's Into the Deep.
And Bishop DiMarzio, thank you so much for being here today, sir. We appreciate your time. Well, this is, of course, an historic time for the country because of health care reform, which has just passed. No matter what side of the issue people might fall on, I think pretty much everyone is agreeing that it is an historic, step in the American political landscape right now. What was your reaction to the passage of this health care reform bill?
Well, it's kind of bittersweet. I think certainly the bishops and I personally, being involved in health care, recognized there was a need to widen the circle of those who are covered for health care. I think it's a basic human need. I wrote about the column this week in the tablet. Clearly, it's a basic human need. It's not a commodity. It's not something that should be rationed, but everybody has a right to at least decent health care. At the same time, a little bittersweet is the whole issue of expanding the abortion coverage that will be paid for by the federal government. Although, again, this is a disputed question about exactly how this is going to happen. We had a executive order that supposedly is going to keep the Hyde Amendment, which limited, actually prohibited any federal funding for abortions. We still remains to be seen how that will be implemented.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about the fact that more people that are, especially the poorest of the poor, may have access to health care now under this new bill, and also that there are some concerns still when it comes to the abortion issue. Do you think then that it goes far enough with this executive order, or do you think that there are things that perhaps Catholics that are concerned about it can do to still get their voices heard?
It's certainly important that Catholics make their will known. We are in a participatory democracy, and your legislators like to hear from people. They emails and telephone calls and faxes. Meeting with them is even better when they're home in their district. People that are elected need to know what the electorate believes. Unfortunately, in this particular case, it was going against what public opinion was, that people felt they were being heroes by going contrary to what public opinion was. Unfortunately, I think public opinion was based on a very confused presentation of the bill. Nobody knew exactly what was in it. We heard different things. It might have been misrepresented. But unfortunately, there was no place you could say, I'm going to go and get this definitive answer to the questions I may have. So it was not a good political process. At the same time, it really destroyed cooperation between the parties. It seemed to be at its worst ebb in a long, long time, where we don't have the cooperation across the aisle that's so necessary to keep our democracy going. Sure. So that's one of the sad parts of this. Hopefully we can go over it and get over it, but we'll see what happens.
Now, among the bill's supporters, there are a lot of people who might say, you shouldn't circumvent the goal of universal health coverage for, one particular issue, and that being abortion in this case. That you shouldn't sacrifice the entire bill for the issue of abortion funding. What would you say to those critics?
Well, I'm saying that it wasn't there before. Unfortunately, because the bishops were always for universal health coverage, we had to swallow a bitter pill. Actually, the bishops come out not in favor of the bill at the last minute because of what we had to take in there. So other people who really, are they concerned about life? Are they concerned, were they on the board for universal health coverage before? But they saw this opportunity to expand coverage for abortion, which is against life. Simply, clearly you can't get any more against life than that. Again, there's people don't believe it, they don't see it, but we have to state what we do believe. We know that is not for life. It's ending life, no matter what proportional good might come of looking the other way. We just can't do that.
Sure. One more question here. Where do we go from here? What do you see happening? In your estimation or in the bishop's estimation, should this bill be done away with and then start over, or where do we go from here?
Well, I think since it's passed, it should be amended. I mean, that's the legislative process. Anything could be changed. To scrap the whole thing is difficult. I don't know exactly what's in it. It's another problem. But I would say, there should be a legislative process of amendment to correct what might be unintended consequences. That happens a lot of times in bills, and also things that truly were intended, which are incorrect.
Okay. Mr. DiMarzio, thanks so
You're
much for
welcome.
talking about this really key topic with us today.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Right.
Well, Bishop DiMarzio has written more about this topic in this week's issue of The Tablet. Just head over to the Tablet's website, thetablet.org.
Well, it's, of course, a very important issue. It's the issue that's been on everybody's minds now, because this process of getting health care through the legislature took a very, very long time. It took about a year for all of the debate. And last summer, we had those very tense town hall meetings. There was a lot of very passionate debate on both sides of the issue for a very long time. So it's, now that the bill is actually law, it's a good time to kind of go back and, okay, what is actually in the bill, and what is actually the law of the land now?
And what does it mean for me? And a lot of people have really sort of looked at that, and I've seen various profiles, and you really are, depending on your coverage and things, will have a different response to that. Yet it's good to really kind of look at the bill, like you said, and kind of think about that. And along the lines of it being a big week in this, it's historic insofar as that it's a major piece of legislation that did come into pass. It's not judgmental to say that it's good or bad or right or wrong necessarily. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I think that along those lines, the fact that they were able to accomplish anything, which I think he alluded to, was historic.
Right, yeah. And of course, we'll be talking to Bishop DiMarzio in this new feature that we have here,
Into the Deep.
We'll be talking with him
He's
about
a lot of fun to have in the
different
studio.
topics. Oh yeah, absolutely. So stay tuned for more of that.
And stay tuned for more currents. So please, stay with us. When we come back, a local group gets people ready for Easter.
Well, Easter is just over a week away. A lot of folks stocking up these days on those eggs and chocolate. Yum.
Stop it. No food talk.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
Not
hungry.
today. But we all know that Easter is really about so much more than that.
It is. It really is. That much was clear earlier this week when the Caribbean Apostolate of Brooklyn and Queens hosted a pre-Holy Week retreat featuring prayers, time for reflection, and a special healing mass.
This is a celebration to get people ready to celebrate the Triduum of Holy Week, which is Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter Sunday. And we have found over the years that it's better to prepare people to celebrate the Triduum because they get more out of it and they really enjoy the experiences more, and it enriches their spirituality.
This week is the first attempt that the Caribbean Apostolate has made in trying to get the spiritual experience in our community, of a reflection on the Triduum. Not as many people came as we had expected, but as Father said, whoever is here is who's been called.
The Triduum. Well, that's the three most important days in the history of mankind. When Jesus came for us, he came to save us. God sent him to save us, and he died for us, and then he rose again.
I danced on a Friday when the sky turned black. It's hard to dance with the devil on your back.
Tonight is the climax of our pre-Holy Week retreat, and we're going to be celebrating a healing mass. The connection for me between the healing mass and the Triduum is this resurrection glory of Jesus Christ, that in our own physical, mental, emotional, spiritual struggles, God can restore us fully by the grace of the risen Christ.
When he called us into the aisle, it was an opening for me because it seemed that everybody participated fully.
I found it very uplifting because we did the praying of the Divine Mercy, and it touched me in such a way that I felt the Spirit move me to tears.
And he says, behold, I make all things new.
So nice to see some Easter events actually focusing on faith as opposed to just food.
I know. As we were talking about earlier, you know, it's not all about the chocolates and the eggs and all that, although I like that. But this is more important, and more importantly than that too. I mean, it adds to your spirituality instead of your waistline, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, one is calorie free and one is not. And one reaps benefits the more that you have of it, hopefully, right? As opposed to the other one that just adds, like you say, to unnecessary poundage.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'll leave the jelly beans and the chocolate bunnies to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And speaking of getting ready for Easter, you know, next week the diocese is sponsoring Reconciliation Monday, when every church in Brooklyn and Queens will be offering confession. And you can check with your local parish or look for details in this weekend's edition of The Tablet.
Meantime, remember, you can always watch us online at currentsny.net, and you can follow us on Twitter, and you can become our fan on Facebook as well. Until next time, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night and a great weekend.